Welcome to Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast brought to you by Jack and Coke. I'm your host, Pete B, and I might need some Jack and Coke tonight after what happened this past weekend. I got my co-host, Sam Jesse, here with me tonight. And I think, Sam, we might need a little help to get us in a better mood. And I'm going to add a screen that could do that for us.
Boom.
Dan the man. We got Dan from Tales of the Terrordome added to the screen. Dan, how you feeling, man?
I've been better.
Sheesh. Yeah, no kidding.
I hear that. Maybe
better.
That wasn't the right question. That wasn't the right question. But like I said to Sam, you're a jolly guy. You like to, mix it up. And sometimes me and Sam can get caught up a little too much in the actual on the field type stuff. We needed to bring in some extracurricular. We needed to bring in a mood lifter. And so, Sam, why don't you kick us off with the cheers and put us all in a better mood?
This is a like totally serious cheers and a little bit of self-praise for Pete and myself and the Sons of Saturday team. Like what we pulled off this weekend was freaking insane. We sold out a bar on Broadway in Nashville, one of the premier drinking streets in the country. Sold it out. The place was bumping. There were, I'm going to put the number at like 27,000 Hokies at Vanderbilt Stadium. It was unbelievable. Like the crowd support, the energy. I mean, there's probably 35,000 Hokies in Nashville. A few of those didn't go to the game. It felt like a bowl game. Like my mom told me while we just got to Nashville, she said, this is what like the Sugar Bowl in 99 and 04 looked like orange and maroon everywhere you went. So shout out to Hokie Nation. That's my cheers because y'all, we're the freaking best.
Yeah. Cheers
Absolute
to that, man.
Best.
Great cheers. Yeah, Nashville could have been more fun, but it was very fun. And I kind of want to say first and foremost to both of you guys and to everyone that's listening, I'm mad at myself. And Sam, you know how much I said all summer, like I was afraid of Vandy. I was afraid of Diego Pavia. It gets into game week and I turn into a freaking JoJo the Idiot Circus Boy with a new pet. Like it's the Tommy Boy quote, man. Like I'm all jacked up. I'm on a rooftop drinking a beer and I'm like, you know what? We're going to win by 21 points. When I said in a tweet, we are not beating Vandy by 21 plus over the summer. Never, ever listen to yourself during game week. That's what the moral to that story is. I tried to express that all summer, but I failed you guys during game week. And I'm going to do a mea culpa on that. I'm sorry. Be mad at me because I already hate myself over it. I'm just like, the whole time I'm sitting there, one of my buddies texted me. He's like, well, if they don't score anymore and we score 38, your score prediction might come right. I'm like, come on, dude, come on. Like, I already feel bad enough, but yeah, it was a tough one, dude. So let's talk a little bit about Nashville before we get into our news and notes. Sam mentioned the party in Tin Roof. That was a lot of fun. Dan, I know you were out and about on Broadway early because you might have had a birthday. Happy birthday, big guy.
Man, yeah. Thank you. I don't know if I lived 10,000 lives at Nashville or I used 10,000 lives. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I'm pretty well acquainted with damn near every bar on Broadway. It was a good time, man, especially like as the week progressed. They got there on Wednesday. Wednesday was fairly tame, but like Thursday, Friday, like Hokies were coming to town. Tweets are coming out. DCA is packed full of Hokies. Charlotte's packed full of Hokies. Like Hokies coming to town, bands playing or Sandman. Like it was peak vibes, man.
It was. It felt like a bowl game, like Sam said. Flags, VT flags everywhere, all over Broadway, and that's why when you show out like that and you support like that, and we're going to talk about our takeaways of the game later. It'll play into that because Hokie Nation gives so much to this program. And even in the Philly airport, I got on my flight. There's VT hats going the whole way down. Everywhere you go, my wife's like, oh, there's a Hokie here. I'm like, you got to stop saying that because there's going to be so many. Like, I don't think you understand how many there's going to be.
We had Let's Go Hokies on our flight from
That's
Richmond.
great.
Like, it was
fantastic.
Packed.
We're going to preview Marshall Dan's university later on. We had to bring Dan on for that too, not just because he's good vibes guy, but he knows a little something about the Thundering Herd. So we're going to get into that later in the show. Let's get to the depth chart injury update, fellas. Jalen Stroman out a couple weeks. I think he might have messed up his shoulder on a tackle or something like that. That's not good. That was one of the players. If you're going down text list of players you'd rather not lose because of depth concerns or just because of his play compared to the guys behind him, he'd be at the top, one of the top of my list. And now Jalen Jones looks like he's going to be that starter next to Mose Phillips. Your thoughts on that, Sam?
I think Jalen Stroman is probably going to be out more than a few weeks, if I had to guess. And then I give a lot of credit to Jalen Jones because he played about as well as you could have asked him to. And he is a guy who they've talked about has gotten a lot better this offseason. So is he there? I don't know. Like I thought he played better than Mose Phillips did. We'll probably get some run from Quentin Reddish out here, especially if it's, earlier in the season. Hopefully Virginia Tech can finally find a way to get a lead and get some younger guys in. So it's not a good loss. It's one that from a leadership standpoint really sucks. But I'll tell you, considering how young it is behind Jalen Stroman and considering the performance on Saturday, would not be surprised if Mansour Delane plays safety.
Yeah, Dan, what do you think about Mansour's potential shift, getting some more snaps at safety?
I mean, if he's going to keep playing corner like he did on Saturday, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know what was going on, but that was just I said on Tales from the Terrordome, like, I don't know how you don't, like, during that game, bench him, at least for a little bit.
He was in his head. He was having a day. Yeah, for sure.
So I think you got a couple options. I know Braylon's been taking snaps at safety. So, like, I'm not saying throw him out there, but if, like, it works or, like, you feel like you owe it to yourself to try whatever it takes.
No, I'm with you. Right now, it's one game, but what we saw out of Lovett last year and his potential growth and his size, like, I wouldn't mind giving him a shot. Like, if we see early struggles from Mansour again at CB, if they shift Mansour to safety to get more snaps there, give Lovett a chance. Because, like, I really think that he's ready to step into that role. Chris Coleman and TSL did a lot of talk about Mansour on their show, so I'm not going to belabor that either. But yeah, we'll get into some of the struggles when we get to Vanderbilt. Keller was moved back to Mike on the depth chart behind Brumfield. What is going on with the linebacker shifting? I understand some coaches don't think this is a big deal to move them, but, like, what's happening? Like, and Lawson, he comes in the game and had our most tackles and all that good stuff. Like, is Keller already second? Like, he all summer long, we heard about him in camp and all this stuff. And it looks like Kelly's already surpassed him in one game.
Dude, I don't know what they're doing at the linebacker position. It is a complete and utter cluster right now. And it shouldn't be because they have 2 linebackers coaches on staff. Right, your defensive coordinator is a linebacker
guys
coach.
On staff.
Brent Pry's a linebacker coach. Like, I honestly think it's just overthinking it. Like, they have overthought the linebacker core since day one in Blacksburg. And it's like, dude, you have athletes out there and you have guys who have played well in games. Get your 3 best guys out there, put them at a spot and keep them there. And then the next 3 guys, put them behind them. Like, there are too many good athletes on this team to try to mix and match. And I just think they are overthinking it and they are getting in the players' heads probably more than anything. And there's probably a reason why the run fits look so terrible because guys have been practicing in 2 or 3 different spots. How are you supposed to learn how to defend the option and play your role if you're learning 2 or 3 other guys' roles at the same time? It was a recipe for failure from the start.
And some will say, oh, well, he was back up Mike already. So, like, moving in position. It's weird. It's just weird that you're going to call him the starting Will and then a week later move him to back up Mike. Like, I don't get it. I mean, Dan, I know you played some football, like, not at this level, but what is all this switching going on? Like, it's a concern. I find it concerning.
I mean, me personally, I feel like Keller's probably a workout warrior offseason machine, looks really good in camp, but then come game situation, maybe Kelly's just way better, which I figured would happen anyway. So then you spend all this time, resources, and money on this dude like Jaden Keller, and you really want it to work out for him. So you keep moving him around until you figure out like something that justifies the means of using all these resources on this kid. And obviously you want to see him do well because he's probably a great person. He's obviously a good athlete. It's just maybe, I don't know, maybe starting linebacker at any of them is not for him. I don't know.
And it could be projection by the coaches in that, and this is the scariest thought, and we'll get to this, but like maybe none of them are very good. And they're just like trying to just
trying to make something work.
Right. They're just trying to make something
And
work.
I'll tell you, it's anybody who's played organized sports, team sports knows like when your coach is moving around positions, it doesn't feel right as a player. Like I know playing volleyball, if you were moving guys from outside to opposite and you were moving guys from, okay, 1 week you're a libero, next week you're a defensive specialist, like it kind of messes with guys' heads. And you're like, what's wrong here? Are we grasping at straws a little bit? And you lose confidence because you're moving around, and you lose confidence in your teammate because you're like, oh, is that guy? I thought he was playing well, but I guess he's not. I guess he's not good. Like it's just not winning team behavior. And
it doesn't seem like it. And I'll say this. Kelly Lawson is the number one at will now. That's what I always wanted. I think that's what the fans always wanted in terms of just his last couple years and his projections as far as his physicality and his athleticism. So that's good. I hope Brumfield can continue to be what we need him to be in the middle, whether that's just average or a little bit above. We'll see. And Kelly Lawson, he's the one with the big upside, right? And he was injured all spring. Get him out there. Let him run around. He led us in tackles last year. Let's see if he does it again this year, and we'll go forward there. Penne and Fuga with the sorry, Dan, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe like I think Caleb Woodson played well. He had a sack, his first sack, I believe. Caleb Spencer's on the team. Maybe at some point you got to try him. Who knows? Like I feel like you got some options, but
they have options. They definitely have options.
I thought Woodson played his role defending the option maybe better than anyone on the team when he was out there.
That guy's going to be a player. Like they got to get him out on the field.
He's a dude
for sure. So they had Penne and Fuga with the or designation at defensive tackle. I'm not sure why, if that was a typo or what. Penne wouldn't be my choice to start, but that's fine. Penne and Fuga with the or designation there. Gallo still questionable, doubtful, really. That's kind of what Price said. He's not going to play this week. Drones was cramping in the game, but he was a full go. I practiced with a sleeve today. So that does it for the injury update, depth chart, all that.
And real quick, Pete, I know we got a lot to get to, but as for the defensive tackles, Peebles, Gilliam, and Copeland are your top three guys. There is no question. There is no
got those two.
There is no, I mean, like, I'm not going to,
we got all three of them.
That's it.
In the portal. Yeah.
That's it. Those are your top three guys, and it's not close.
I thought
Fuga can play. I mean,
I thought Penne didn't look too bad on Saturday, man.
You don't think his PFF grade was way too low for how he played. I thought he wasn't like missing tackles and stuff like that.
But with you bring in 3 defensive tackles and you have Fuga who played for 3 years and you're going to start Penne potentially. I don't really understand that. And is that a bad sign? But we got to get to more stuff here. So in recruiting, we lost the Uten commitment. We will not go into any detail on that, but it was just a little bit of salt in the wound on Sunday when Uten, our top recruit, decided to commit to Penn State of all places. So we had that going for us on Sunday. College football Monday. Sam, Robert, and Coach Holmes did a great job at 8 p.m. on Monday. We'll be back this upcoming week, getting you filled in on all the action. But if you want to see a coach's reaction to what happened at Vanderbilt on Saturday and maybe explain away some of the reasons why, I thought Mike did a really good job, and that's on the channel. You can find that. The Pick'em leaders, we had a guy in our Pick'em go 9-1 this past week. Cantwell Red Devils 9-1. There were 2 other people at 8-2. I went 5-5, but that's good enough for 14th place out of 59 participants because I don't think anybody did that great. Sam, I think you were 1 game behind. I think you were 4-6.
I didn't. On my actual bets, I think I went 5-5 on Saturday. So
there is a guy there's a guy in the pick'em that went 1-9. Jimbo, you got to pick it up, man. Sometimes you got a bad week. That's all right. Get after it this week, Jimbo. We talked about the trip to Nashville. I did want to say that what was cool about Tin Roof was I got to meet a lot of the people that listen to the show. Cody, Will, Eric, so many more. Ann Templeton and her husband, Allison and her crew, podcast people. I mean, Tally was out. Brian was out from Boundary Corner. Got to see Dan, obviously, as the weekend wore on. Grayson was out on Saturday at the game. So, and I talked to Chris Lester. I talked to Mr. Drones. The players' parents were out and about too. So it was just, everyone was having so much fun. And God damn it, Hokies. Why'd you have to ruin the fun? We were having such a good time before that. And I got to have some good beer. Sam, did you have any local beer? And
yes, I had. Let me talk about something else. I'm going to pull it up on Untapped because I forget. I did have this one PBR for $2.50 at Roberts on Broadway.
See, that's a deal right there. That you don't get better deal than that on Broadway. It's so goddamn expensive. But I had the Bearded Iris Home Style, which was recommended by our listener RJ. RJ, thank you for the recommendation. The beer was really good. It reminded me a lot of a Victory beer I like called Brotherly Love, 6% IPA, a little bit of haze. It was tasty. Dan, how about you? Do you get anything good to drink out there?
Actually, so Layla's. I went through that little alley. It was actually pretty cool. So I went and got my hot chicken for Prince's, and then I went through the alleyway up in the back way into Layla's, which is the way the artists used to leave the Ryman and go up into the back of Layla's so they wouldn't be like seen. And they have their own beer called Layla's Light, and it actually wasn't a terrible drinking beer. Same with Eric Church's Beer in My Hand, I think it was called. It was a light lager. It wasn't like super impressive, but if it's hot and you want to have a couple, it was pretty solid.
Nice.
Yeah, I had the Edley's Hazy IPA from Urban Chestnut Brewing Company. That's from Nashville. It was really good. It was just a solid hazy IPA, and shout out to them.
Well, I was at the Listening Room my last day in Nashville. The Listening Room is where a lot of songwriters will go and perform. It's a place where a lot of up and comers will be there, but you're hearing the actual writers sing their songs, which is pretty cool. And they have a beer on tap called TLR Lager, the Listening Room Lager, and it's made by Urban Chestnut, Sam. So I'm glad you brought that up. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys watching. Let's get into the game recap, fellas. We go down 17-0 due to a turnover, anemic offense. Defense couldn't get off the field. We did put up a field goal before the half to make it 17-3. Finally started moving the ball in the third. Even took the lead after 2 more touchdowns in the fourth. But as was the theme of the day, defense couldn't get a stop. Vandy went right down the field to make it 27-27. OT saw more of the same from the defense. Vandy scored easily. Colin Schlee had to come in due to some cramping for drones. Couldn't get it done. Vandy wins 34-27. But as we always do here on Too Deep, we play the voicemails from the weekend to give you a better sense of what happened in the game.
Toki hack. I bought up, the hype train. I had a first-class ticket on the hype train. And I tell you what, this is like one of those train wrecks. Still the second quarter, but damn, this sucks.
Listened to all the hype for the last 8 months. Thought this was our year. Thought we were going to steamroll Vanderbilt.
It's the same fucking shit. A less talented team out-schemes us and out-coaches us with a mobile quarterback, and we lose a close game.
Tough loss. Traveled all the way to Nashville for that. Fun. Can't win on the road, of course.
Anytime that we've had time to think about what to do against an opponent, we completely shit the bed.
Why can't this team play an entire game of football?
I was having Belk Bowl 2019 flashbacks. Pavia was looking like Lynn Bowden out there.
We let who we feared, Diego Pavia, take over the game.
We couldn't be so stupid as to not change any of the play calls since Jerry Kill was on staff, right? We can't be that dumb. Because that's what it seems like.
2 zeros on the field? Like you count the players, the numbers, get them off the field. What are we doing?
There's no way you can allow 2 players with the same number on the field. Those 3 points cost us the ball game.
What an embarrassment. An absolute embarrassment. Now we'll never hear the end of it.
You know, it's fitting that this game is happening in Nashville, a town celebrated for its music that's actually hollow and incomplete, because the people who actually write the music aren't the ones that sing it. Instead, it's a town of actors, just like this team, a bunch of would-be fakes trying to pretend there's something they're not.
There's no excuse to lose to a team like this.
We proved in the second half that we were the better team athletically with personnel and everything else.
Benji looks good. But like, we had good spots, just couldn't put together.
I'm not blaming it on drones. I'm not blaming it on Tootin. I'm really blaming it on overall scheme and approach to the ball game.
This is terrible. Absolutely disgusting. And, you know, someone has to pay for this.
Hot take. Pry will be fired at the end of 2025.
I mean, I coached middle school special teams, and I didn't have blunders like that. It's almost like, you know, we're in lost, and, like, we're in, like, the purgatory that is the island. We think things are going to get better, just like it was for Gilligan and them. I mean, that's two different shows, but... Well, I'm going to go tear down Broadway. Yeah. Just a gut punch.
All right. That last call was from Hack, who was clearly perhaps a little inebriated, tearing down Broadway, as he said, but mixed up on the shows. That was cracking me up. Someone's got to pay for this. That was one of my favorite lines. Fuente, Jesus. Pry will be fired by 2025.
Freudian slip.
Yeah,
Freudian
really.
slip.
Jeez Louise. But yeah, that was a great set of calls. Thank you to all of our regular callers and some of our new callers that they decided to call in after that game. I needed that because it was cathartic. Some of the thoughts I had myself. And so it was good to hear. If you want to get in on the reaction line next week, call 540-251-2169. I want to ask you guys for your stories of the game. Just a quick one-sentence story of the game after I read this ad. 2 Deep Hokies Under the Influence is brought to you by Jack and Coke. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke. The #1 cocktail in the world is now available in a can. It's true. Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey mixed with Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola Zero are available in a can at your local grocery store and convenience stores. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke, ready to drink. And as always, please drink responsibly. Now, I did have a Jack and Coke while I was down there. It wasn't in a can, but it's a great drink. And when you're in Nashville, you're in Tennessee, you got to do some Tennessee whiskey. And so even though I drank a lot of beer, I did have a couple mixers as well. Dan, what was your story of the game?
One sentence?
Ish.
Hokies shit down their leg.
Yeah.
That's good enough. That'll do it. Sam, what's your story of the game?
This is harsh, but the Virginia Tech coaching staff does not match the Virginia Tech program right now.
Okay. My story of the game was the hole we got ourselves in. Slow start, and the defense just completely unable to get a stop. That was collectively my story of the game. I want to talk about the defense first, because that is, I think it was the worst part of it. If you had to pick one, I think the defense did a worse job than the offense. We didn't get a meaningful stop the entire first half. And it was really, if you went the whole length of the game, it was really a poor performance overall. 371 yards allowed doesn't really tell the story, because that's not a terrible number. It's not a good number, but it's not a terrible number. They scored on their first 3 drives. 2 of those drives combined for almost a quarter of play. It was like 14 minutes on 2 drives. Everyone has said this week how few possessions we had. Well, it's because we couldn't get off the goddamn field. Mm-hmm. Sam, what did you see from the defense? Why was Vandy able to move the ball so easily?
Well, like you said, that defense was on a very hot field for a long time. And from what I've seen from the condensed game, from being at the game, was time and time again, we had 2 guys playing their jobs and 1 guy not playing their job. And Diego Pavia is not a great quarterback. He's not. He's not Johnny Manziel out there. He's not some option menace. but the guy's good enough at doing that play to beat you over and over again and make the right read. And consistently, one of those reads was open every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense just, it was like a new issue every single time. And I'll tell you one of the biggest plays of the game. One of the biggest plays in the game. It was 3rd and 13. Vanderbilt had the ball, I think, on like their own 45. And we were running press coverage on 3rd and 13 on their side of the field, running press coverage. And we got beat one-on-one on a simple fade route. Delane was 5 yards away from the guy, just ran straight. And Pavia put it in a basket. That play opened up their offense so much because our safeties took a step back after that. And that really hurt the defense, I thought, for the whole first half. Because it took our safeties out of the game a little bit. And it took our cornerbacks out of the game a little bit because they had to be thinking, oh, this guy can throw.
Mm-hmm. And he can throw.
He can. But I mean, that's, for me, it was the combination of when they needed to get off the field. I didn't think the defensive call was correct. And I didn't think our guys made good one-on-one plays and one-on-one reads.
In critical moments, right, Dan?
In critical moments, yeah.
It felt like whenever we really, really needed to bow up and get a stop, we just couldn't do it.
Nope.
What did you think about the play of the linebackers in the game, Dan? Did you feel like, because from my eyes, it seemed like there was a lot of missed tackles, some poor run fits again. This is a concern.
The biggest thing for me was I feel like we did a good job of eliminating the pitch option, but there was nobody there to fill the hole for Pavia. He could just run. He didn't need to pitch it if he could run for 6 to 8 to 13 yards every time. At one point, they had APR like spying him, which I think was a mistake because APR should always just have the green light to go. And then you should have somebody a little more athletic and fast spying on Pavia. I mean, everybody knew he likes to run. So I don't know why it looks so shocking on the field to the defense when he was just running everywhere.
And that's what I mean. When me and Sam analyzed this game, once in the summer and once week of the game, we said the skill talent is okay. It's not great. It's not elite. Sometimes the wide receivers looked elite on Saturday. Not exactly sure why that is. Skinner has new life breathed into him. The guy was making every clutch play, but this game came down to Pavia. We knew that. 2 years of film knew that. And unless he put the team on his back, we were going to win the game. Well, guess what he did? He put the team on his back like what is it? Greg Jennings, man. He did it.
Broken leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, the broken leg.
After the game, Brent Price said, well, they gave us some looks that we didn't see. They might have given you one or two, but dude, they ran the exact same offense they ran at New Mexico State last year. I mean, the exact same thing. There were 2 years of film of them running the same triple option out of the pistol. So don't give me that they had different looks, dude. Like, your guys just weren't ready to defend the one look that they killed you with all game.
And I understand it's hard to replicate in practice. You're trying to do it with Davy Belfort. I get it because it's a physical game, and when the option is actually in a critical moment in a real game, it's different. But it's the first game. You've had nothing but time to practice for this, and I don't understand how this happens against a quarterback with this much film. I know it's a meshing of multiple schemes a little bit, but like, give me a goddamn break with this. Like this was a failure of preparation.
And Pete, I asked after 1 week of fall camp in the press conference, I asked Brent Pry and I asked Chris Marv, have you started preparing for Vanderbilt? Because they have a weird offense. Have you started preparing? They both said that they had started preparing and it was earlier than normal. Clearly that was not the case.
I mean, maybe it was, but maybe they were watching film of the other Tim Beck's offense. Because there's another Tim Beck in college football. I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. But it did not appear that we were ready to play at all, particularly defensively. Now, this goes for the offense too, but Chris Marv comes off looking unfavorable after this. And I'm not putting it only on him. There's a lot of defensive coaches across this thing, but the game plan, the scheme, whatever they did to prepare, it was lacking. He would agree with that. It was lacking. You put that on top of the fact that the linebackers, the biggest question mark on the defense coming into this year, don't look that much better. And again, it's a tough thing to prepare for, but like, how many excuses are we going to give for what happened on Saturday? We were 2 touchdown favorites and we could not get off the field. And so I said it all summer. I talked to Coach Gouvier Winslow about it. Like, what do we think about the linebackers? I asked Dax about it. I said, what do you think about the linebackers this year? Are we going to be better this year? They're going to fix stuff. The tackling wasn't good. Like, it still wasn't good. What do you guys think about this theory that I have, that even though our stats were good last year against some bad, I know we improved as the year went on against some not so good teams, but the team played well. 0 rushing yards against Syracuse. Do you feel like the defense, Dan, there's kind of like a lack of cohesion overall? Like, it's almost like they play as 3 separate units.
Yeah, I could see that. It's I mean, we thought, bringing in Brumfield would change it. Maybe that's on us, because it's really, we made one change and the other 2 positions are the same athletes from last year. I'm not quite I mean, I don't know. The thing that threw me off the most was how bad Mansour looked. Like, I was not prepared for him to be that bad. It was like literally automatic. Every time Vanderbilt needed to make a play, they had one, because he never covered. His dude was open. Dorian is his average. Like, they didn't even try him.
They didn't try him.
They did not even look at him.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, the defensive line, especially, I said it on the Boundary Corner preseason panel. I was like, weightlifting records don't matter if you're still not stopping the run, and they didn't do a damn thing on Saturday to stop the run. I was living my own worst nightmare.
And I'll tell you too, Dan, with Mansour, they made him do, like, I felt like he was always in a very compromised position, whether that's him not really being in the right spot or the calls. Like, for me, it was a 3rd and 9 when they ran that fade route for the touchdown, which was a great catch. But it's 3rd and 9. You're near your goal line. And again, you're running press man coverage. The only real route that beats you here is a fade route. That's the only real route that they're going to run with that guy on the outside. And you're press man coveraging him. You're playing right into it, because even if you're blanketing the wide receiver, your back still turned the ball. If you're just 4 or 5 yards sitting off of him and you're playing, you can get the catch, but you can't get the first down, then you're fine. Then that play never happens. Mansour's all over that. And if he throws it, Mansour probably picks it because he's looking at Pavia. It's just, they had him in weird positions. I think there was 3 or 4 times that they were like faking a blitz to him. Like, they were faking a corner blitz. And then right as the ball snapped, he had to bail and go all the way out and cover his guy. He has no shot at doing that. It was just really weird stuff that they were doing with Mansour in this game that kind of leads me to believe, like, if anybody needs position change, it might be him, because he's a good football player, but it was not working with what they were calling on Saturday.
In defensive, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I thought Lovett looked okay when he was out there for the couple plays he was out there on Saturday, but then again, they weren't really having to test him at that point because they could just run with the Pavia.
Yeah, it's true. I would just say, with regard to Mansour, he got a bad completion on him early, and sometimes things snowball on you. And especially if that team is picking on you, once they see that happen, like Sam was just kind of suggesting, it just gets out of hand and a player ends up looking a lot worse than he actually is. And so we'll see what happens with Delane going forward. We've seen enough of him that was unlike him. It's not what we're used to. And so we'll see if it gets better as it goes on. I'd also say about the defense, all the things we just laid out of them not playing well and maybe not being prepared and properly motivated by the coaches. They also had no luck. Like, All those balls hit the ground. We couldn't get a fumble. The interception that Mansour almost pulled in, which it looked like he kind of did pull in, didn't count. It like we had no luck. Like if balls are supposed to bounce 50-50, and like that's not what happened in this one, man. And
also,
Vandy made their own luck too.
I felt like he was over the line, and they said it was a backwards pass, but I felt like that ball went forward.
It's a weird call.
Yeah, very weird call. A lot
but I was in a bad spot, so I couldn't really see.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I didn't comment on this earlier, but you want to talk about not being able to see or being in a bad spot? That stadium, and this is going to come across as sour grapes if any Vanderbilt people are listening, but like it took me 30 minutes at least to get to my seat. Herd of people the whole time. The aisles to go up completely packed. You couldn't go up or down for 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. Worst stadium experience of my life. I've been to hundreds of football games, hundreds and hundreds of baseball games. I've never seen anything like that. And I know that stadium's under construction, but good Lord, get it together, because that was unsafe. That was an unsafe environment for so many people. We didn't even sit in our seats because once we got up there, like I was afraid, like in terms of like any kind of emergency, like you wouldn't be able to get out.
Yeah.
So we went over to like the pavilion where they were selling some beer and kind of watched the game from there. But yeah, man, couldn't see the view. Like if I was sitting in my seat, the viewpoints would have been fine. But like we were kind of standing, and the game wasn't going well anyway. So sometimes when that happens, I kind of like look away, hoping to hear something good happening. I don't know if you guys ever do that in a game, but bad stadium experience. Am I alone on that?
No, it sucked.
Yeah, it was like eight different ways to only end up going into the stadium one way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Really bad stuff. All right, let's talk about the offense before we take a little beer break. This was the tale of two halves for the offense. When we finally scored our field goal in the first half, it was 52 seconds left, and it was only our third possession of the game. Our drives in that first half totaled 86 yards. We scored four times on the first 5 drives of the second half. The last drive was 97 yards, and we totaled 313 yards in the second half. That would have been the third best of all last season. Only Syracuse and BC had a better half in terms of yardage on the year last year. And we know how good the BC and Syracuse game turns out. So we really got back to what we were expecting in the second half, but we had just dug too big a hole. I thought, Dan, that Drones looked skittish and looked a little tentative in the first half. What did you see?
Man, he couldn't see the field, man. It was bad. Like it was like Stephen Gosnell and Ollie Jennings were open several times, and he would check it down either for minimal gain or nothing. But there were touchdowns available. He just wasn't seeing it. I was shocked, dude. I was like, man, if it stays like this, I don't know, dude. Like I was baffled.
I agree with you. I'm sorry. I thought you were finishing your thought there. I hate when I cut you off, man, because I wanted you to keep going there. The turnover. It was already skittish. It was already looking a little uncomfortable. I think the guys were playing tight. I was tight. Like I was tight watching the game. 1, because I was in a crowd like this, but 2, because it was just a little uncomfortable what I was seeing. And then Drones tries to baby that pass over the top, gets knocked down and intercepted. Sam, that play felt so critical.
I think that's the biggest play in the game. If in terms of expected points added, that was a negative 6.85. So it's pretty much you gave away a touchdown.
It's a TD, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the biggest expected points added swing of the game. And to be honest, it was a good call. Tyler Bowman didn't have a lot of them that game. I thought he was terrible. And we'll get into the game plan, but I mean, it was a tunnel screen with your best playmaking wide receiver into a blitz. If that ball gets to Jalen Lane at least picks up 10, 15 yards, probably houses it.
Housing would be great. That might be too optimistic, but it would have been a nice gain.
It would have been a nice gain. It's like I immediately turned to Billy Ray. I immediately texted in our group chat. That was an ODU play.
Yeah.
Like that is a play where you have it called up and you go to execute it and it just tips off the guy's fingers and it just so happens to fall right to one of their defensive tackles who was blocked beautifully. If that defensive tackle wouldn't have been blocked beautifully, wouldn't have been there to get the tip interception. I just think after that play, it just it got in his head. It became an uh-oh moment for the whole team, especially Kyron. And he did bounce back from it. It looked really rough there for a bit, but he did bounce back from it. But again, like we were talking up there in the stands, there's not enough time in this game, man. There's not enough time because that first half went so fast. They had to be perfect in the second half, and they were like 90% of the way there.
Yeah, when that happened, when the interception happened, it was early in the game, but my stomach sank. Like I was like, and I texted, this is the anatomy of an upset. And I think I even noted the ODU thing too, with like independent of your thought. I mean, it's just, we've been through it so many times as a fan base. Like we know the feeling. And when I saw a shiver went down my spine, like it was just like, this is going to be a little bit tough. Kyron's going to have to, shake it off. And it took him, unfortunately, it took him a little too long to shake it all the way off. The O-line also didn't have a good game. You mentioned decent blocking on that play, but there were 3 sacks, not good rushing totals. What we wanted to do wasn't working. I did think there were bright spots from the skill position players. Dan, I'll ask you this. Do you think we used our best players enough? Because there was a lot of chatter about Ali Jennings only having a few targets and Tootin only having 9 carries. Like, what did you think about that?
Well, I mean, to be honest, once we realized our receivers were beating their DBs deep a lot, we should have just switched to, a Graham Harrell Texas Tech air raid. Like we should have just been, airing it out. But, Tootin, the run game wasn't working. I don't know. Like you could have kept going at it, but at one point, was it worth it to just add extra damage to his body? Ali Jennings, I feel like he was about to crash out at one point because he was open, and Jones just wasn't seeing him.
Yep.
That one play would have been a touchdown that he checked down to Tootin, and it ended up being like a 1 or 2 yard gain. But I thought, honestly, I feel like if Nick Gallo would have played, our blocking would have been better. But yeah, I thought our skill position players, despite not getting the ball as much, looked pretty good. I probably would have liked to have seen. I mean, how many times did they motion to Kai Heath? I feel like they could have, done a little more of actually giving him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you had Schlee in there on the 2 quarterback look, I felt like they could have done a little more using him because he didn't look too bad actually when he was in there. I mean, he had like that 13-yard run, but for the most part, I thought our skill guys looked all right. I mean, they didn't make me feel like we were going to have a really bad year or anything.
No, I mean, the Gosnell brothers, I thought played really outside of the one drop. Benji and Stephen Gosnell, 9 months off an ACL tear, 3 catches for 72 yards. Benji with 4 for 61, could have had a touchdown as well. Whenever people are critical of, and I'm guilty of it, we didn't give Tootin the ball enough. We didn't throw Ali the ball enough. And I probably agree with the second one more. Tootin had 9 carries and 6 catches, which was a lot of checkdowns, but that's 15 touches of our 64 plays. That's almost a quarter of the plays. Like there just weren't the way the game was going. It wasn't, once you're down 17-0, you can't just keep giving Tootin the ball. There wasn't enough time for that. And so was there a mistake in the game plan initially in not trying to attack more, and a weakness that me and Sam had talked about, that secondary being so weak? Yeah, maybe once you realize the run game was going to be harder to come by, you just needed to start throwing it down the field. And whether it was by design or by Kyron being skittish, I don't know which one it was, but it was the exact opposite of what we needed to do.
Pete, we talked on the pod. We actually disagreed about this. You said, hey man, this is Vanderbilt. We're better than them. We have the better players. Like, we need to stick to our game. We run Tootin, we run Thomas, we run Kyron, we run them up the middle because that's where our best offensive linemen are. We run up the gut of that defense. It'll open up everything else. And then I said, well, I think their secondary is their weakness on defense. We have good wide receivers. Push the ball, spread it out, push the ball downfield. Let's go there. They somehow did neither of that. They somehow didn't do anything. They somehow were like, wait, well, what if we like flare a wide receiver out right at their defensive end and just kind of like shovel them the ball? What if we just swing past the ball outside with our power running back? It was a complete and utter failure play calling in that first half, and it ruined the rest of the game for them. They didn't have enough time. The reason they didn't have the ball is because they couldn't pick up first downs, because they weren't throwing the ball downfield. They thought they could just run away from Vanderbilt's players. And it's like, you spent all that money. I'll just say it. You spent all that money to keep all those wide receivers in here, and you're running them with swing passes. Like, to me, man, it was just a complete and utter failure play calling, and they did not set the players up for success. And then you saw in the second half, guys were running open. Guys were running open a lot, and it was just too little, too late.
You wanted to be aggressive. I just wanted them to find the balance and go where the game took them. And I did say that. I said, this is Vanderbilt. Play your game. We found a good system last year on offense. Do what works. And and adjust. Obviously adjust if things are going poorly, and they were going poorly. So whatever they did, and I agree with you, I don't think they necessarily did either of the things we were thinking they were going to do. And I also see 16 rushes for drones compared to 10 for Tootin and Malachi combined. That's not what you want, whether it's for health reasons, and our quarterback was cramping later in the game in overtime, critical juncture to some people. But also, it just means that the game's probably not going well if Drones has more carries than Tootin and Malachi combined. And that is true, because I think Drones, he wasn't comfortable early in the game. That was clear. He was missing guys, as Dan said. Our receivers dropped a few passes as well. That doesn't help a quarterback that might be having a little bit of jitters. But I just wish we had attacked a little bit more and allowed the athletes that we've retained to go make the play. Maybe Jones isn't having a good game. Just put it up. These corners are not good. Let our really good wide receivers go and try to make a play on it. Dan, do you put more of that first half on Bowen, or do you put it more on just the guys being a little tight?
Nah, man. Bowen resorted back to like first half Bowen from last year.
Mm-hmm.
That was egregious. Like, if they would have just I felt like Vanderbilt came out ready to kick our ass, and we did not come out ready to kick theirs. It looked like they were very hungry. They had a game plan. They were dialed in. We did not have any of that. The play calling was very conservative. Because I thought, we come out first play, we got two quarterbacks out there, hadn't seen that before. I was like, oh, we're going to do some stuff. What are we going to do here? Nothing. Not a damn thing.
Nothing.
So it was just kind of like you set the tone you were playing from behind from the beginning, because they went down and scored. They got the ball first, right? They went down and scored, and then it was kind of just like that. You thought that would have motivated you to come out aggressive, but nah, it didn't.
No. And we ran for 2.5 yards per carry in the game. And credit to Vanderbilt, because they loaded up on the run, and they kept everything in front of them, and we took the bait, because every single time Drones was checked down Charlie, and he just threw it out to the side, and we'd get a couple yards, and that was that. And maybe we're not focusing enough on the good second half, and maybe we should, because we may look back on this season and say they played one really terrible half of football. Like we may come back to that, because Tootin got himself 2 touchdowns in the game, and Ali kept getting wide open. And if Drones has had a better day, who knows how many yards? I mean, you look at Drones' totals and his statistics and his passer rating. They're good, like 66% completion, 2 touchdowns. He did have the pick, 162 passer rating. Like that's really good, but it's misleading. I think it's a little misleading, because I don't know if you guys remember when Tyrod was on the Bills. And the coach of the Bills, who's still there, I can't remember his name, but McDermott. He didn't like Tyrod because although Tyrod's rating and statistics were pretty good and he got him to the playoffs for the first time in a while, he was missing open plays. Like, it wasn't so much the plays that did happen, it was the plays that didn't happen. And that's why McDermott didn't like Tyrod. And listen, that was what I read. I don't know. I'm not going to besmirch Tyrod Taylor, but the coach didn't like him because of that.
Blasphemy.
I think that is a little bit of what happened here. Yes, his stats were good, but like, what could they have been? Like, I think he left a lot out there, and I think he would probably agree with that if you really asked him. And
I would hope so.
Any final notes on the offense, the overtime run from an injured Karen Drones? What
that was they know that was a mistake. That was that was
idiotic.
They knew that was idiotic. I don't need to talk about that.
Okay. Do we need to talk about the double number disaster?
No.
Like, can we have a moment of silence for Malachi Thomas for losing his life on the field on that Ollie Jennings touchdown? He's a martyr.
Yeah.
He's a martyr.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, Thomas is a good player, and one carry. I mean, I understand, like, people want more carries for Tootin, but like, I don't know. This is how this offense is going to be this year. There's only so many, and when you have a game like this with limited possessions, there's not enough ball to go around.
Yeah.
All right, but special teams double number disaster. It was in the calls. It was a giant screw up. Inexcusable. Might have cost us the game. Okay, we did that. Takeaways. Dan, why don't you start us off with one of your takeaways from the game?
Despite all of the negative things that went down, they managed at one point to play pretty good football. And I think if they could I felt like all the issues, I don't think it was a talent issue. I think it was just, which is good because now all those issues that happen are fixable. And that's a positive. Like, hopefully they don't repeat those things, but at least it wasn't like, oh man, our players weren't good enough. No, our players were beyond good enough. They were they were better, more talented, I think, than a lot of what Vandy put out there, but it's just some scheme and some other things I think are going to need to be fixed, and at least you can fix them. That's my biggest takeaway.
How about you, Sam?
Yeah, well, I agree with everything Dan said. My biggest takeaway from this game, though, is I just feel bad for our fans, man. I do, because ever since, I think you can say pretty much ever since COVID, right? After that, the grenade that threw, that COVID year threw in the transfer portal, not only Virginia Tech fans, but also college football fans have been told by coaches, by the media, and by athletic departments, the key to winning in modern college football is you, the fans, spending a boatload of money. That's what they've been told. And that is what, Brent Pry has said it, Babcock has said it, and they've mirrored what almost every major head football coach and athletic director have. And you know what? Virginia Tech fans have stepped up. We kept a lot of players at Virginia Tech this year, paid up for it. And then you donate all of that money, and then you travel to Nashville, basically sell out Vanderbilt Stadium, right? You're traveling out there. You are making a ton of noise, enough to that it was picked up on the broadcast and pointed out by the broadcast how loud it was when Vanderbilt was on offense. And you do all that and you support all of that. And you know what? It does not matter unless you win on Saturdays. Like, all of that money, all of that effort, screaming and yelling on third down, I hate to tell you, it will not really change what happens on Saturdays. That is up to the players and coaches. And it sucks. I hate that. But that is what college football is right now. And you know what? I told Pete, I think I told you to this, but I told it to Pat as well. Something's going to give here with Virginia Tech football, because this level of support, dude, it's teetering on. Is this going to last at this level financially, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't need to get into the details of that, but financially, is this thing going to last? Because something has to give. Either the football team starts winning games like this, or the financials are going to be pulled back and the supporters are going to be pulled back. But then I thought about that more, and I think I brought this up with you, P, is like, something's got to give, but guess what? I'm going to be there on Saturday at that Marshall game. And I'm going to get there early and I'm a tailgate, and we still have our season tickets, and we're going to get them again. We're going to get them again. And we're going to get them again. So you know what? Hokie Nation isn't going to be the one that goes away. If this current staff and this iteration of Virginia Tech football can't get it done, guess what? They're going to be the ones that are leaving. And everyone knows that. So my message to fans is keep showing up and keep supporting. Do what you can do. But understand, if this doesn't work out, there will be changes made, and you'll still be there at Lane Stadium on Saturdays. So keep supporting. But my gosh, we deserve so much better than what we saw on Saturday.
Very well said. And that actually is very in line with what my takeaway would be in terms of the more somber takeaway, which would be like, this was extremely disappointing and just an absolutely disaster of a result with everything we've heard all off season. And Pry has seemingly done everything right. The build was heading in the right place. We're going into year 3. We're not hearing any red flags in the offseason from practice reports, from what the coaches are saying about the players' development, all this kind of stuff. They're not complacent. They're not reading their press clippings. And then to go out there and do that, it was a betrayal of our faith in the team and the coaches. I felt betrayed, and that may seem dramatic, but like, ask anyone who follows this team closely, and like, we're all a little dumbfounded. Like, it's a little bit like, how the hell it just doesn't jive. Like, it just felt like we were past this type of thing. And I understand it's college football. Crazy things happened in week 1, but this was not the moment. With 25,000 of your fans in that stadium traveling to come see you play because all you've told us is how much better this program is getting, it felt like a betrayal. And Pry had said on our show, but with Billy and Pat, the pats on the back are great, but they don't mean shit. And then in the post game, he said, maybe we needed some humbling. I don't know what I want him to say, but that sucks. Like, that sucks that you felt like maybe the guys needed some humbling and maybe they were shell-shocked. Maybe you didn't have them ready to play. And he obviously is going to fall on the sword. He's going to take that hit, and he did. But this outcome, this specific outcome against Vanderbilt is so damaging because perception in college football is extremely important. The jerseys matter, like in terms of national perception, right? Like, it's Vanderbilt, improved or not. They are the doormat of the SEC, and you just went down there and you lost as 2 touchdown favorites. We're supposed to be this perennial football school that's coming back and building themselves back up, and we lost to a school that doesn't do that. Me and Dan said that in the pregame. We said, this isn't really a football school. They're not known to be it. They lost 10 straight games last year, and they beat a school and a fan base that prides themselves on being a football school at times. The perception is so damaging. And then you have the support side that Sam talked about. How many casual VT fans might not tune into another game this season because of this result? I'd say the percentage went up. I'd say it went up quite a bit. And forget about them attending a game, the casuals. Like, they're not coming. I know you will be there. I know I will be there. I know Dan will be there. They're not. They have our money. They have our attention. But you're not bringing in casuals doing this type of shit every goddamn year. Like, it's so infuriating. And you want to talk about a bigger level of support? Imagine being Mahul on Sunday morning. Imagine being any of these $250,000 plus donors, that some of which I personally know, on Sunday morning. Now, they love the Hokies, and they're probably not going to do anything to revoke some of that support. But when they're getting texts about what happened from their buddies, like, how many texts did you get from your buddies being like, you guys were the only double-digit favorite to lose outright this past weekend? That shit sucks. Mm-hmm. That shit really fucking sucks. And I am so goddamn tired of it. So this loss, damaging, brutal on multiple levels. And I know a lot of that can be cured. if you win some games. And I know I'm probably
Pete,
boring you guys.
No, you're speaking the gospel. Pete, Dan, I don't know about you guys. Actually, I do know because you guys were there. I've never felt that after a game, or I had multiple people come up to me and give me a hug and say, "Are you okay?" And I saw people doing it to other people, consoling them like it was a funeral. Back to when Fonte said nobody died, the people were genuinely sad downtown Nashville on Saturday
They were sad.
night.
And listen, we managed to have a good time. I know Billy took a little bit of heat for saying he managed to have a good time. We had a good time. Dan had a good time. I know we did.
Outside,
but you know what would be more fun? If you fucking win. That would be. I mean, that would be
outside,
more fun.
Outside, I was having fun. Inside, I was experiencing the type of hell that Dante wrote about in Divine Comedy. Like I was genuinely like every 5 minutes, I felt my heart sink, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" So it is.
If we would have won,
yeah, man. If we would, oh god,
I would have done a duet with you, Pete, at karaoke.
Oh god, you guys got to check out the karaoke video that I posted. It's not of me; it's about another guy singing Tequila. That shit was funny as hell. But
okay,
yeah, like you said, man, like we go down there, spend a lot of money, probably over $1,000. Like if you think, but like Broadway's not cheap.
Flight,
like
hotel,
the whole place,
beer,
everything. Yeah. It gets ruined by that particular thing. Almost, you still manage to have a great time, but I mean, like these destination games are fun, but if you're not gonna match the energy, like it's almost insulting. And I feel like I'm not tapped into other teams, podcast, creator world, but I feel like Virginia Tech's network, I would probably put it up there with almost anybody. And it's just, I mean, we're out here preaching this gospel every week, and I'm just tired of looking dumb.
That's the thing. I said at the top of the show, like I predict a victory. Dan, you're on that one thread with me. Every single guy on there predicted a multiple touchdown victory. I'm not calling anybody out, but like, we all did it. We're all doing it, man.
I put money on it.
And
yeah, I did. I bet the over still hit, but it's not the over I wanted to hit. But we did a great thing live. Boots on the ground, and it was just a waste of content because we just got smacked in the mouth. I mean, it was fun.
I hear.
I mean, the challenge is going to be inside that locker room. Like fans can dwell on it, and it's not going to difference. And this loss will hurt for a while. The challenge is going to be moving on from this inside that locker room because those guys know who they lost to, right? Like they know Vanderbilt, and the challenge is going to be figuring out how to get these guys to believe that they are good enough to still win the ACC, because there's nothing on film that tells you that they are. I mean, they just gotta come up with that faith out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it just killed all the momentum. This program, for the first time in many years, felt like we had momentum, and in one half of football, they managed to ruin it. And you can recover quite a bit. And this is a question for you guys. Like you can still win 9 games this year. And I put that video out about how I even said myself in the preseason, I think we're going 9-3, but we're going to lose a stupid game. I didn't expect a stupid game to necessarily be week 1, but I knew that it was probably coming at some point. But if you lose to Vanderbilt, that perception brings it down a notch. It's harder to recover. Even if we win the ACC, well, let me put it to this way. If we win the ACC, it's all forgotten. It was just a bad game. Like it's all good.
It's 2010 JMU.
Yeah. Which still stings though.
I mean, yeah, but I think it's again, we shouldn't, like, I think this team's, Billy Ray has said this and he's absolutely right about it. This team's goals are ahead of them. And as we talk about, like, eventually we're going to talk about Marshall.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Like there's no reason for this team not to be able to win 8-9 games this year. Even no matter what, like that's one loss. We knew they weren't going to go undefeated. Like it's one game. It's just, does this staff have the ability to week in and week out get the guys ready to play. Like that's, and we thought that they would have improved in year 3, and it just doesn't seem to have happened yet.
I think what
man.
it is, Sam, is that it's embarrassing. Like, this loss is more embarrassing than losing to Georgia Tech at home. It's more embarrassing than losing to Syracuse in the Dome. It may be more embarrassing than losing to ODU. It may. I'm not sure. But like, that's what I just I'm trying to reconcile. Like, what's it going to take for me to get over the embarrassment of like, you went down and lost to the worst SEC team? And I'll say that in the same breath as saying, like, if you look on the talent composite, Vandy is ahead of us. They're 50 and we're 52 in the 247 talent composite, meaning out of high school, they technically have more and better talent than we do. By a smidge, it's about even. But like, they're not a terrible roster, but it still says Vanderbilt on their jerseys. And that's they were like, what, we're over in our last 11 power conference games. Like, this is the type of embarrassment. This is the type of shit we thought we were past. And that's why it's frustrating. And I'm breathing and we're good. Now, no one wants to hear this, and I already said it, but we can still win 9 games. We can still win 9 games. It's going to start with Marshall this week. And I hope, because of the way we fought back, because of the resilience, because there was a lot of mistakes that are correctable, that we can look back and feel, okay, it was one bad half. We're going to be in the ACC title hunt. If you win, it doesn't matter what the perception is. You're in the playoff. Like, it's an automatic bid. And so, yes, our goals are in front of us, but it doesn't take away from some of the pain and some of the just
sadness.
Come on, guys. Like, really? You did it to us again? Like, you really did it to us again?
FSU and Clemson seemed to be down.
Right.
It felt like the
State
ACC was
good.
Yeah, really, and they got Tennessee this week. It felt like the ACC was more up for grabs than it had been, and we just came out flat, dude.
Right.
Now you have to beat the hell out of Marshall. Even if you win close, it's not going to be good enough for the fans. You have to dog them.
And we're not going to even get into the idea of like, if we lost to Marshall. I'm not getting into that idea right now. That is for a later time. I don't think we'll go there, but hey, I didn't think we'd lose to Vandy either. We're going to do Marshall in 1 second. I want to let you guys know that the 2 Deep Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Roback as well. We got Jack and Coke. We got Roback. Sam, more Roback than ever this past weekend in Nashville. You wore the shirt. I wore the shirt. 200 of our best friends wore the shirt. That was pretty cool. And we even saw some of the new drops out there too, because they got the new logos and everything. You have to use code 2DVT for 20% off your first order. Get a new email. Use that code again. Buy a hoodie, buy a tee, buy a quarter zip, joggers, shorts, tennis skirts. They got so much activewear because Roback craves activity. Make sure you're using that code 2DVT for 20% off your order. Right now, Dan, are you drinking something over there tonight? I knew you weren't feeling so well after Nashville.
No, I had a Celsius and a big bottle of water.
Okay.
I'm on a Tylenol, Dayquil, and NyQuil cocktail.
Well, that sounds like it would make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, I gotta be ready. I got a concert tomorrow night, Co-Wetzel and Roanoke with Treaty Oak Revival opening, and then I got a game to tailgate for all day on Sunday or Saturday, and Bring the Noise.
Hell yeah!
So I gotta make sure I'm good.
Sam, what are you having?
Love it. This is my last of the Glean from Baja Havana Brewery. We'll have new ones next week. If you hadn't heard, this one is the Mango Peppercorn Saison from Brewery Baja Havana in Raleigh, North Carolina. It is one of the better breweries that I've ever tried. Multiple of their beers. Pretty cool can. If you're in North Carolina, I believe they'll have them at specialty beer stores, and it is phenomenal. Best Saison I've ever had.
Nice. Hopefully that brings the Wolfpack a little bit of luck when they play Tennessee this weekend, being from Raleigh. I'm drinking the Oktoberfest from Sierra Nevada. You can see they got a nice traditional thing on here. This is actually a collaboration with Gutman Brewery. The Gutman Collab Edition is what it's called. It's got your traditional Halloween colors, got the orange and the black. It's called a fest beer. And sometimes you see this at brewers. You see fest beer, you see Oktoberfest. I always thought they were all the same thing. I think they are the same thing. This one's good. 6%, maybe a little bit on the stronger side for an Oktoberfest. A lot of them kind of come in that 6.3, 5.7, 5.5-ish range. This one's good. Sam, when we were at Ardent, you said like, I'm not a big fan of when they're too malty. You will not have that problem with this, and you already know with the brewery, Sierra Nevada, you're going to get a high quality beer. So I would recommend the Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest. I'll probably put it at, let me think, 3.75. I give it a 3.75. Well, it's harder. Like with the IPAs, you're more like, if it's a really, really like good IPA, you'll go into the 4s. For a lager or even an Oktoberfest to get up there, it's really got to knock your socks off. But 3.75 is favorable.
I will say the Montucky cold snack that I had on my birthday, a light lager, interesting can, big rainbow and a unicorn, light blue, but a solid beer. Solid beer.
I had a couple of those myself, and I actually have been in talks with the owner brewer over there, and he's going to come on our show. They're releasing Montucky cold snacks in Virginia, hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months. And when that happens, we'll have the Montucky cold snack owner on our show to interview, to chat with them, because they not only make a good, solid light beer, they donate 8% of their profits to good causes. It's right on the can. Like they donate a lot of money. It's part of their mission. I want to ask them about that. And so that's cool. And you actually texted me that picture, and I was like, that's so odd, because I was just emailing with that guy like that day.
Yeah, I like the beer. I like cans like that, the ones that pop, draw your attention. And I pride myself in being an ally, so it's cool,
All right, going back to last year and even 2022, we seem to be able to kill the bad teams, get crushed by the good teams, and maybe lose a close one to any decent team. Which one of those is Marshall? Are they a good team, a bad team, or just a decent team?
Dan, you want to go?
So I think typical Marshall will end up with they're usually a partial qualifying school, or like if you still want to play serious ball at a high level and you messed up where you were before, they're a good school to land at. So they do have some talent. They typically recruit Florida pretty well, and they do have a former 4-star Florida State wide receiver on their roster now. They've gotten one from UNC. He's from Virginia. Their running back's from Virginia. They have talent. They might not be. They definitely have their shortcomings. I don't know how good they're going to be this year. They lost a lot last year. Rasheen Ali. They played 3 quarterbacks against Stony Brook. I honestly can't call it. But if we handle business, like, we should beat them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And you had some interesting things about their personnel, because I look at this personnel and the fact that they've had so many outgoing transfers, so many incoming transfers, a lot of change, and a lot of their transfers didn't go to like good schools. The ones that went out, like only 4 of them out of like 32 went to power schools. So not necessarily a roster overloaded with talent. There is no more Rasheen Ali, as you mentioned. I think this is a team that is very, very beatable. Now, their SP plus is actually higher than Vanderbilt, even after week 1. And I obviously, SP plus takes 6 weeks to like really filter out all of last year. But that was a little like, it raised my eyebrows a little, Sam.
Yeah. And they do have some talented players on the roster. However, this is a roster in flux, and it is kind of a reset year for Charles Huff and that staff. They brought in Seth Dagey to be the offensive coordinator. He's only, I think he's like my age. He was at USC for 3 years and then Ole Miss last year. He's an air raid guy. So they're moving to this air raid offense. They don't really have the guys for it. It seems like they are in a 2-year rebuild to try to see if Charles Huff can stay as the guy, because they do have expectations at Marshall to be a pretty good team.
They
A
beat
lot
the
of
crap out of Stony Brook last week.
I'll tell you what, I would take a 4-3 win over Stony Brook all day.
Yeah, I wish we played
the
Stony Brook
Seawolves.
last week.
Last year, I remember being on the preview pod with you and Robbie, and I talked about, like, dude, their offensive line is massive. Their defensive line is old and disruptive. Like, this team is good at what Virginia Tech is bad at. Those guys really aren't there anymore. And they don't have the game breaker in Rasheen Ali. There are still questions at quarterback. I'm blanking on his name, but the big time wide receiver, he left. And it's like they just seem to be a much lower quality team this year than they were last year, and it's in Blacksburg. So,
especially offensively, right?
Yeah, especially offensively. And I just don't know if I don't think they're as talented as Vanderbilt. Like, I don't think they have a player on their team as good as Diego Pavia or Colby Taylor. Like, I don't think they have a player even close to that caliber. So,
well, they definitely, we better hope they don't have a quarterback like Diego Pavia. They've been playing in the one game they played, they had Stone Earl. He started, and then Braylon Braxton, which sounds like one of those made up names from Instagram.
Braylon Braxton
from Tulsa transfer. He got in there too. And then there's Cole Pennington, who we know is the son of Chad Pennington. Earl can run a little bit, but this is supposed to be an air raid-ish system. And none of these guys in their backstories have a lot of, like, good passing stats or anything that you would really, like, be worried about. Is that what you're feeling, Dan?
Yeah, they also sort of have, I think there's a rift in Huntington culturally between what Charles Huff is and wants his program to be and what the AD and Marshall deem appropriate. I've heard that he has, I'll dumb this down for the sake. Actually, no. He has a poster apparently in the locker room every week called Selfish Fuck of the Week. And if you, like, miss class or you're late to class or something, he'll put you on there in front of the whole team. I don't know if it's true, but I mean, it's like giving me some PJ Fleck vibes. But, like, yeah, I don't know. Cole Pennington is very, very inexperienced. You would think he would probably, I mean, being the son of a pro, Marshall legacy, you would think he would be the starter, but they started Stone Earl, then they went to Braxton, who played pretty well. Then they went to Cole. So it's kind of like, I don't know, but, like, they don't, I don't have as much as a casual Marshall fan who just roots for them because I was there for a little bit. It's just kind of like, I don't feel as strongly about them this year as I did last year, mainly because Rasheen Ali is gone, and he was just a freak.
Does the 119 yards on 8 carries by AJ Turner against Stony Brook make you think differently? Is that, or is that just him running against a bad team?
He's a Phoebus kid that went to Life Christian for his final year, then he ended up at Marshall. I mean, anybody, if you let him, anybody can burn you.
Yeah.
But he's not as good as Rasheen Ali.
No.
So if you stop it, I'm not as worried about stopping him as I would be last year with Ali. But if you let it happen, obviously we saw it week 1, it will happen.
Yeah. They also have Jordan Houston, which is the guy that quit on NC State last year and then found himself at Marshall. And he has already played in 5 different seasons of college football. Nevertheless, I do think he can make some plays. They used him a little bit last week. Maybe they were saving him for this week. But him and AJ Turner, Christian Fitzpatrick, Metcalf, there's a couple guys on here that are threats, but I don't think their offensive line is going to be very good. I don't think their weapons are so crazy, and I really think they're going to have a quarterback problem in Lane Stadium. Yeah. What do you think about the defense? Because I think this is the better side of the ball, Sam, but what do you have to say about their defense?
Well, it's tough to tell playing Stony Brook, right? Because you can just, that level of FCS, you can kind of just man on man and win the game. But this is a team that, like, historically has had very good defenses. They had a very good one last year. they lost a lot. And I think it's always really tough to project what the second string behind really good players looks like. Because it's like, all right, you just like a good mid-major player that just so happened to be behind a stud? Or is there this significant drop-off, right, because of the lack of depth? I was listening to the Thundercast, good friends of the program. They do a great job covering Marshall. And I remember last year listening to them and being like, oh man, Tech might lose this game. Like just how they were talking about that team is like, this might be bad. Listening to them this year, this is not a roster that's ready to win in 2024. Like this isn't they have some guys like Jordan Houston was a good pickup out of the portal. He's a talented kid, but other than that, like there aren't a ton of guys that scare you here. So it's a lot of this team is a total unknown. And I think it's not only an unknown to us as Virginia Tech looking outside, but even listening to guys who have followed the program for decades. Like it's an unknown to them. There's a lot of question marks on this team. That might play into, as we kind of transition into predictions for the game, whatever we're going to do, that might help Virginia Tech. Because maybe less scheming and coaching might be a good thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe just go out there and play football might be the answer for this team.
I really want to put a hurting on them, not only because of what happened this past week, but they beat us just last year. And they started off 4-0 last year. And even after they beat us, I think I put, or in the pod or whatever it was just like, they're not a good team. And then that proved to be true. They weren't a good team. They were better than us at the time. And I want to, especially after losing to Vanderbilt, them beating us last year, like you got to go out and you got to be able to run all over these guys. I mean, I expected their offense to be terrible this year. Maybe that changes if Earl is decent with his legs based on what Pavia did. I don't know. Forget the roster. Forget what they have. You got to beat the shit out of this team. Like you have to go out there and you just have to play super well. Like, cause at the end of the day, it's Marshall we saw the David Hale tweet. We saw ODU. We saw Rutgers. We saw, all the teams we've lost to with these terrible football names. Enough. They're this in the, the composite. They're this. They've got this guy. They've got this corner. I don't care. Okay. They don't have a star quarterback. They don't have a top 10 defense. Beat them. And beat them by a couple scores. What do you think is going to happen on Saturday, Dan?
Yeah, I think ultimately it should be a revenge game. They beat us last year. It was Kyron's second start. He was figuring it out. We hadn't quite hit our stride yet. They had some pieces that could dash us. They don't have that this year. They're coming to our house. I believe we're doing something of the 99 team.
They're honoring the 99 team in some way.
So like the last time they did that, it was Duke, and we can't have that happen again.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Only game I've ever walked out on.
Oh my God. But like, I think we handle business, and they got to do it early, though. They got to make them – don't give Marshall confidence. Don't let Mike Green, Landon Watson, Jacoby Henderson, Jabari Ishmael, guys like that get any confidence. Our D-line should wreck their O-line. Our DBs, I'm not concerned about Dorian Strong's ability to defend their receivers. If you handle business early and often, I think we're going to be it's going to be a soiree the second half, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, if you play like you did the second half against Vanderbilt on offense, I mean, we scored 24 points in the half, right? Like, if you can just do that, Marshall's not going to put up enough points without a Diego Pavia to be a problem. I don't take anything for granted at this point, but if we want this season to be any kind of something special, you better go out and you better win by at least 17. I mean, the line has been moving all over the place, Sam.
It's crazy amount. It was 13.5 to open. It is now at 20. Yeah. And it's at 20 at minus 112 to Virginia Tech. So that means that they are favoring Virginia Tech by more than 50%, because at the straight model 50-50, that would be a minus 110. So this is at like 51% Virginia Tech to win by 20 or more. That's crazy. That's crazy line movement. And I think it speaks to the fact, Robert Irby brought up, after the last 4 Virginia Tech losses, they have won by an average of 24.5 points. So that's pretty impressive.
That's very impressive.
Can they do that? That's the question. For me, I'm not picking Virginia Tech to really perform well against any of these teams until I see them do it. They didn't perform well against Marshall last year. Prove it to me that you can beat this team.
What was the number that you said you wanted to beat our first 4 opponents by? Just I'm not trying to call you out or make you feel dumb. That's not. I'm just
100.
It was 100. We lost by 7.
Don't do this, Pete. Don't do that.
Do you think it's still possible? Is my question.
Washington, with a first-round quarterback and 3 top 3-round wide receivers and the best offensive line in college football, I think they outscored their 3 non-conference opponents by like 109 last year.
Okay.
So it's technically possible.
Well, here's what I'm trying to say. And it's not going to be let's not even get me started on ODU yet. That's a whole different fear.
This was the game that was like, this could be 45-3. Like
right.
This was the one we circled that was like, this could be a blowout.
Right.
Yeah.
And so go out there and do it. You've got all the more motivation to go out and frickin' do it. Put on a show for these fans that some of which went to Nashville and then are going to be in Blacksburg supporting you yet again. Let's do some against the spread picks. And I actually have a treat for you guys. At the end of the show, I have a poem from Pete McGee. He left a voicemail the day after the game. It wasn't technically a reaction, but it's a great piece of audio. I'm going to play it at the end of the show. Dan, we got some good games to pick this week, and these are in the pick 'em. I want to start with Texas at Michigan. Michigan 6.5 point underdogs at home. What are you feeling in the big house?
Man, if they look like they did against Fresno State, Texas is going to cover and Arch Manning's going to finish the game.
That would be something. And I tend to agree with you. I think I'm taking the Longhorns. What do you got, Sam?
Yeah, I don't think Michigan can score with them. Like, I even think if Michigan's defense plays well, that means Texas scores like 24, 28 points. I don't see Michigan scoring that. If you are betting this, I would make sure you pay up to get it under a touchdown, though. So pay up to get Texas minus 6.5.
Yeah, it's 6.5 on. Keep in mind, these are the pick'em spreads that I'm using. And I was impressed as shit by Texas, the way they took apart Colorado State.
A good Colorado State team.
Yeah, that's not a bad team. Arkansas at OK State. OK State's in the picks again. 8.5 point favorites. They are bigger favorites this week against Arkansas than they were last week against South Dakota State. So take that for what it's worth. Sam, what do you got in this game?
Yeah, dude. Taylor Green is fun. Like, he is a fun player to watch. The issue is when he goes up against good defenses, the whole running around like a maniac thing doesn't work out. So I'm gonna go Oklahoma State here. I know Sam Pittman's coaching for his job, but I think the Pokes they seem to be riding a wave right now. And I don't like it because I don't really like Mike Gundy, but I bet the numbers, not the team. So I'm gonna go with the Pokes.
I am taking Arkansas plus 8.5. I just think in this kind of like older school rivalry, like they'll be able to keep it within a TD. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, it's the matchup of the mullet versus the man boobs, dude. I'm trying to think. Ollie Gordon's playing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So give me Oklahoma State.
Okay. All right. You like the – I mean –
it's at home, right?
Yeah. It's Oklahoma. As far as I know, it's not a neutral site. I believe it's in –
This might be a Jerry World game. Hold up.
A Jerry World? Oh,
yeah,
it might be. He does have those connections to Arkansas. You look that up, Sam. Scar at UK. That is South Carolina, who was having their hands full with ODU, going to Kentucky. Kentucky 9.5 point favorites. I'm looking at this spread, and the Shane Beamer heat is turned up to 11. I feel like UK could pace them. I really do. What do you got, Dan?
Man, their quarterback at South Carolina left a lot to be desired last week. Going to Lexington, They're trending up at UK. Have been for a while. They need I feel like I'm taking the Wildcats.
What is the spread that the Pick'em has for this one?
9.5 UK.
Yeah. You know, what's tough about this is I
it's a
don't
lot.
love Kentucky's offense,
Mm-mm.
but these are the type of games that Mark Stoops has kind of feasted on at Kentucky, winning these type of games, like being South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, those teams, Vanderbilt, you know. So I got Kentucky in this one. I think the heat is really going to turn up on Shane Beamer. Like I think it's going to turn up to the point where there's going to be a question of whether he coaches in that game to start next year.
Yeah, and it puts Virginia Tech fans in a little bit of a weird spot. Maybe some, I would imagine a lot of people have love for Shane. But then you look at the recruiting class and you look at all these Virginia recruits committed to Shane. And
yeah,
I got to say,
as Marshawn Lynch would say, let's take care of our own chickens.
Well, fine. But I got to say, I wouldn't hate a couple losses for South Carolina.
I wouldn't lose any sleep.
Michigan State at Maryland. Maryland, 9.5-point favorites. That's a big line for what I consider to be two like pretty mediocre teams. I know Michigan State just revamped and all this stuff, but you're doing the Turtles?
Turtles.
That's a sea turtle, but I'll qualify it as a terrapin. That'll work.
Going Turtles all day. Michigan State looked terrible against Florida Atlantic.
Yeah. Is Florida Atlantic the one with Tom Herman? Who's got Tom Herman?
Florida
Atlantic. That's not a bad program.
It's not bad. I have their over win total.
Okay.
They don't have a quarterback though. Cam Fancher beat us at Marshall. Now he's there, but yeah, can't really throw.
Yeah,
but I did watch that game.
I was pretty drunk for that game too.
I mean, listen, none of us watched as much of the games as we'd like to because we were all a little bit occupied. But I'm going to take Michigan State. I like their coach a ton, Jonathan Smith, and I
do too.
I think the quarterback's got potential, and I don't think FAU is a bad team either. Boise at Oregon's the last game we're going to pick. Oregon struggled last week. They are 18.5-point favorites at home against what is always a feisty Boise team. And Boise won, it was a nice win on the road. They played Georgia Southern, right, Sam?
Yep.
I feel like, not that Oregon would ever look ahead to Boise, but they were not locked in for Idaho. And so I think they're going to tear up that defense on Boise State. I will take Oregon. Dan, what do you got?
Yeah, I think it really depends on if Oregon comes out guns blazing and they take that incredible running back from Boise State out of the equation. I think they're going to cover easily. But if not, I mean, I could see Boise State covered because they've always played big teams tough, but I don't know, man. Dylan Gabriel, Dan Lanning, I think it might be a little too much for Boise State. I think they cover.
Yeah.
How about you, Sam?
I got the Ducks covering in this one. I don't like it, but Boise State has allowed 30-plus points in 7 of their last 14 games, and that includes 56 points to Washington last year. It includes a 45 spot to Georgia Southern last week. They have not improved defensively, and I think Oregon, as nasty as that scoreline looked, they probably deserve to win that game like 38-14, not 24-14. So I'm going to go with the Ducks to cover big in this one. I just don't think Boise State has enough defensively to slow down Oregon. That home crowd is an actual menace at Autzen Stadium. I'm going with the Ducks.
And they're going to be wanting to make a little bit more of a statement after what just happened. I'm sure Lanning's been in their ass. All right. Iowa State at Iowa, big game this weekend. That's -3 to Iowa. Colorado at Nebraska. That's going to be a fun one. Nebraska, 7.5-point underdogs at home. I kind of like that Nebraska pick. Fun ACC games. App State at Clemson. Clemson 17-point favorites in that one. Be careful, Dabo. Just be careful. Tennessee versus NC State. NC State over a touchdown underdog. That's 7.5 in Charlotte. I don't know what to do with NC State, man. They looked so bad, and Grayson McCall looked so mediocre for most of that Western Carolina game. I don't know. And then there's some important conference games, like from a reputation standpoint. Look at Cal going to Auburn, SMU hosting BYU, Duke at Northwestern. You guys can be locked into that one. And then Pitt at Cincinnati, another one that's going to garner our television. These are the kind of games that the ACC needs to win. And listen, I'm sure any ACC fan, any person that has the dumb bad luck to be rooting for an ACC school is cursing our names after what we just did, because that's what we talked about with Packers, Sam. Like, oh, the ACC needs to go out there and they need to do some shit. And then like we're the team that did the bad shit. But yeah, a lot of fun games this weekend, including a couple conference games, because Georgia Tech goes to the Dome. What do you think's happening in that one?
It's a weird game because I feel like Georgia Tech, like there's an argument to say that they've expended a lot of energy the past few weeks. And they are a team who last year would look good for 2 weeks, bad for 2 weeks, good for 2 weeks, bad for 2 weeks. So a little bit worried about that. But also Syracuse's defense didn't look good against an Ohio team that should be bad in the MAC. I mean, they lost 14 players in the transfer portal, 2 power conference teams, and they didn't even cover that spread. It was a 16-point win. So I think Georgia Tech should win this game, but I could see it being a really close contest.
I mean, it would be so very ACC for Georgia Tech. Get a big win versus Florida State, who now we think might be trash. Get a win coming back from Ireland against a bad team, and then lose to Syracuse. Like, that would be very ACC.
That's very good ACC.
And Syracuse is getting points at home right now. So, I don't know. And then you got UVA at Wake, another barn burner. I think UVA should win that one. Dan, what do you think? How are you feeling about the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, they should win that one. I would like to see them lose that game. Obviously, I don't know. It depends on if Calandra decides he wants to gift the ball to Wake a couple times.
Yep.
I think Clawson will have them disciplined. Just depends on if they're talented enough to beat whatever Tony Elliott's got going on.
That's definitely a game that could be like for the basement in the ACC. Because BC looks pretty good. At least they looked good against Florida State. I'm just trying to think of the teams that we considered preseason to maybe be questionable.
I mean, it's them too in Stanford, I think.
Yeah, Stanford.
And I look at that Wake Forest UVA game. Neither team was tested. They both played FCS teams. UVA played a bit better one in Richmond. I think Dan hit on the head. Like, if Calandria throws the ball to guys wearing black and gold, Wake Forest is going to win the game. If he doesn't, UVA is going to win the game. I think it is that simple. Historically, he has thrown it to the other team, so I think Wake Forest might be the move in this one.
When you look at that and you see kind of two evenly matched, what seems to be bad teams, you're going to lean towards Dave Clawson. Like, that's just what you're probably going to end up doing. Of G5 interest, ECU at ODU. I'm only bringing that up because we play ODU the following week. ODU plus 2.5 at home after keeping it close with South Carolina. And then UTSA at Texas State. That has potential playoff implications. Potential. Close spread on that one too, UTSA and Texas State. But they could be the G5 representatives, potentially one of those two teams.
I like ODU outright. And I would bet probably the over in Texas State UTSA.
Okay.
Neither of those teams looked very impressive. Texas San Antonio played Kennesaw State. Texas State played Lamar. Neither showed a lot. Neither looked impressive. But I do like both offenses, so I'm going to go over. That could be a 35-31 game, something like that.
Sweet. Well, this hour and 15-minute long podcast has gone for an hour and 45 minutes, so we did the best we could, guys.
We're just producing content out here, Pete. That's all we're doing.
We did the best we could. You know, when you got 3 people on here trying to make all the points and have a little fun and speak your mind, it can drag on. But thank you guys both for being here. Dan, it was good to see you this past weekend, my brother. We will see you in a couple weeks. I would bet. Sam, you're going down this weekend. Dan, you're going to be there too, right?
Oh yeah.
Very nice.
Dan, I'm getting there early. I'll be sure to hit you up.
Yeah, dude, I'm around.
I'll be jealous of both of you guys.
Chicken Hill tailgater, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm on that side.
Yeah.
And I also got to see some of Dan's family, or sorry, Sam's family. You guys, your names are so darn similar. I keep mixing them up. Anyway, I got to see everybody this past weekend, and it was so much fun. Let me play you that voicemail from Pete McGee.
Hey, Pete and Sam. It's Pete McGee here. Pleasure meeting you guys on Friday. I usually go with haikus, but I wrote a longer form poem to describe my feelings and our experience as a fan base. Here goes. The hyped football season was finally here. Easy non-conference, we had nothing to fear. Returning production, Hokies had it in droves. Surely a potent offense headed by drones. Friday night in Nashville was truly epic. Saturday came, we were all optimistic. Heat in the 90s, but why should we sweat it? Hokies packed first bank, vibes were high like the sun. Kickoff arrived and, oh no, this is no longer fun. Confusion among us, offensive plan was a disaster. I'll bet defense will help us. No, Diego was much faster. How about special teams? Can they be our heroes? Unfortunately, no. They wore a bunch of zeros. Second half got our group back, had a plan of attack. The forward pass had us returned to a winning track. A fourth quarter lead. Wow, they're gonna pull through. But for Tech, a choke job was inevitable, if nothing new. Another example of Hokie cheer treated with theft. But the season goes on with 11 games left. Go Hokies.
Just beautiful stuff from Pete McGee, who I actually learned his name isn't Pete. he told me his name is Greg. Which is just
Is it Greg McGee though?
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but it's not Pete. But
He introduced himself to me as Pete McGee.
Well,
and that's all I heard.
Yeah, I think he knew that we would know who that is, but he later told me his name's Greg. And if you look at his handle, I think it says Greg. But anyway, thank you, Pete, Greg, for the poem. I'm sorry I didn't play it earlier. Kind of got mixed up as we went through this thing, but that was fantastic. And that's the kind of enthusiasm, jokes, just good vibes that we're looking for here because we need it. We're not sure how long it's going to take for this program to become serious again, but until we do, we need shit like that. Is what we need. So thank you for the calls. Thank both of you for being here. And until next time, go Hokies.